1. My middle and high school band was blessed by the presence of a neckbeard in the making. We'll call him Clarence, because that is the perfect name for a gentle sir of his caliber. Clarence, like myself, was a clarinetist. Not a good one by any means, but he was. We had 5 clarinetists, Clarence and another boy who played the basic first clarinet parts, and 2 girls and myself who played the much harder, high-note-laden second clarinet parts. Clarence never showed much interest in clarinet, routinely skipping lessons to play Pokemon on his Game Boy, and spending most band rehearsals goofing off or chatting up the flute section. I asked him why he was even in band if he had no interest, and he replied, "To attract a partner of the female persuasion, women appreciate refined, cultured men such as ourselves." He said this while adjusting his poorly fitting hockey jersey. This kid literally always wore sweatpants and hockey jerseys, even in spring. And they all had stains and or holes, somehow, and winking charismatically. One week, we were traveling upstate for a music festival and contest type thing. As high school bands often do. We'd be missing Thursday and Friday's school and returning home Saturday evening. Everyone was excited. On the bus, I was sitting near Clarence, attempting to complete Thursday and Friday's work, so I didn't have to bother with it at the hotel. Clarence kept leaning over to badger me about various subjects. "I heard you caught a shiny Voltorb on Pokemon Silver. Consider trading it for a Hitmonlee. Help a brother out, you selfish prick. If you're just going to do homework, you could at least help your fellow man. How do you do these problems again? And proofread my essay while you're at it. I'm looking forward to the hotel. I'm hoping to have a pleasurable encounter with Sydney." The name of an attractive flute player in a long-term relationship, and with considerable disdain for our hero. "I can tell she's into me." We arrived at the hotel and ate lunch, after which we had an afternoon practice for the whole band, which Clarence skipped to eat vending machine chips and play his Game Boy in the room. He was rooming with the other first clarinet, and I was the bass clarinetist. The other 2 second clarinets were in the room between ours. After dinner, we had evening practices for anyone doing solos, duets, trios, etc., or anyone who wanted extra help before the contest. I worked on my quartet with the other 2 second clarinets and Clarence's favorite flute player. Clarence showed up to this practice, waved off the wind director, who thought he came for extra help, and sat between the 4 of us, whistling seductively, giving the girls simpy comments, and asking them to meet him in his room. The director gave him the boot after 10 minutes of this. After evening practice, we all retired. Friday morning, day 1 of the contest proper, I awoke, dressed in a button-down and black slacks as per concert code, met my friends for waffles and cocoa, and returned to my room to practice a song until we had to leave. While doing this, I saw Clarence, decked out in the same foot-stained sweatpants, and ripped Buffalo Sabres jersey he'd arrived in. They looked slept in and smelled like 10 boys' locker rooms had been emptied into a landfill and pumped through a rusty pipe into someone's unfinished basement. He greeted me warmly as I entered my room. "Greetings, my good man. I regret to inform you that I have not had any success with the females." "That will change, surely." "That's nice, Clarence. Why are you dressed like that? And why didn't you take a bath? This is a contest." "These are the only clothes I brought." Tug's jersey collar expanding one of its many holes. "What the hell, Clarence? And shouldn't you be practicing?" "I left my instrument at home." He holds up a Ziploc containing a stick of cork grease and a single reed. "Left my case and clarinet under my bed. This is all I have. I also left my folder that has my lesson book and sheet music at school." The band director was far from thrilled by this news. We left Clarence at the hotel to await judgment, and proceeded to the contest. A parent chaperone who was under the weather volunteered to remain in their room, which was across from his, and make sure he wasn't too rowdy. Several hours later, we returned to the hotel. We clarinetists decided to check on Clarence. His room was locked, so the first clarinet had to key us in. We immediately saw several trails of watery paw prints leading to and from the bathroom. I entered the room, and was not prepared for the sight that awaited me. Clarence was lounging in a steaming bathtub. The water around his fupa was slightly discolored, and there were chunks of something brown adrift at the bottom. He had a box of room service food balanced on his belly, and a few chip bags floated to his right. Propped up on the towel rack was an issue of Playboy, whose pages Clarence turned with his feet. His Game Boy rested on a stool, where his left hand was manipulating it. His clothes lay in a stinky pile next to several discarded food boxes. I had caught him mid-fap, as evidenced by the position of his hands. He burped in surprise and slid deeper into his swamp, dislodging the chicken he was eating from his fat belly and splashing water around the room. After Clarence dressed himself, we brought the director in to see the fruits of Clarence's labors. He was kicked off the band then and there and would be forced to attend the second day of contests. When we checked out, the room service charge from Clarence's room was in the area of $110. Band was the only time I saw him. I had all advanced classes, so I have no idea what became of our hero after that weekend. 2. The other night I was feeling bored, so I decided to go out to a local club that wasn't far from my student flat. After having a couple of light drinks, I walked around between the rooms to see which one I wanted to dance in. This club has 3 rooms, with each playing a different genre of music, which is great when a song comes on you don't like. Anyway, as I was milling about, I noticed some girls I'd been friends with since first year of university. We had all shared a flat with a couple of other guys. I had also been to one of the girls' birthdays a couple weeks prior, so naturally I went over to say hi. They seemed really happy to see me, asked me how I was, and even offered a shot of vodka. Well, I wasn't about to say no to a free drink, and asked if I wanted to join them. My friends weren't there alone, being with several guys and another girl. From what I gathered, they and some classmates had planned a little event together, but no one seemed to mind if I joined. So we danced for a while together, chatted, and I even bought my friends some drinks to say thanks for the vodka and for having me. VK Blue, if anyone's wondering. Anyway, as we're dancing, I notice one of the guys keeps glancing at me a bit skeptically. As I've never seen him before this, I figure he's wondering why I'm here since I hadn't initially been part of their group. Fair enough, right? So I casually explain how I knew the girls. He seems to relax and says,
"Oh, that's alright then. I thought I might have to step in on you. I'm here to stop any creeps."
He tries to act super tough while saying this despite being the human equivalent of a chihuahua. Seriously, I'm a guy with arms built like pencils, never done any hard drugs, who would rather be playing Warhammer than going to the gym if I have the choice, and I wasn't scared of him in the slightest. God knows that he would be useful as a gelatine pickaxe if someone in the least bit intimidating actually showed an interest in harming him or one of my friends. I initially chalked this up to him maybe having a bit to drink, or wanting to sound impressive, so I didn't mind. Until about 20 minutes later. A couple members of the group had decided to call it quits for the night, including the human chihuahua. He, without any explanation, tries to kiss me. I hold up my hand to ward him off, looking confused and shaking my head. To any normal person, this is a clue that I don't want them any closer.
"Oh, come on, just let me kiss you."
Disgusted, I once again tell him no, although a little more firmly. Luckily, this time he takes the hint. Although I'm fairly certain had he continued, security would have stepped in, as there was a bouncer watching this less than 10 feet away. I have no idea why he thought it was acceptable to try and kiss me, and then to try again when I told him no. If I had to guess, I imagine he thought something along the lines of,
"Well, this guy lived with these girls for a year and still isn't trying to sleep or even flirt with them. He must be gay. So obviously he won't mind me trying to slap my cock holster on his face."
Or something like that. I'm not gay, and even if I was, I wouldn't want some random guy to try and kiss me. Especially if he didn't get the clear hint that means go away. You'd think that would be the only dick I'd run into that night, but no. Not even a random guy, but another from the group who I barely knew. At this point, I feel like I should clarify that not every guy in that group was like this. All the others were genuinely nice, and I talked with a couple of them for a while, and it was just these two. So this second guy, as the group was dancing, for some reason, which still escapes me, decided to flip me off and for the rest of the evening keeps shooting me dirty looks. I honestly can't remember having done anything to offend him. If it was because he liked one of the girls, it still wouldn't make sense, as I wasn't flirting with them or doing anything of the sort, just being friendly. So I have no idea why he saw me as competition. Ironically, if this latter reason was the case, it backfired, After that, I noticed most of my friends giving him a bit more of a wide berth. When we were all walking, the girls, who shared a student house together, asked if I wanted to crash in their spare room. The guy isn't even offered. He gives me one last dirty look, then heads home alone at 3 a.m. Meanwhile, I get a spare bed and free pizza for the night. It was awesome. 3. Story starts at the beginning of high school, when I first met our neckbeard, Jay. He was a classical neckbeard, a very big guy with greasy hair, neckbeard, and weird sense of style, and he smelled really bad. I am a very extroverted person, and I knew almost everyone in school, but he didn't really want to talk to my friend group. It looked like he didn't like us. It all changed in spring, when I started going really early to school to squeeze in an early practice, since I was preparing for an important boxing match. So when I would finish and go to the classroom, he was the only one there. I was very friendly with him, and we eventually found common interest, anime. I liked watching it, and even though I wasn't as obsessed as him, he was really happy about it. So we would talk about it every morning until the rest of the class came, and then he would retreat to his seat and be quiet. After some time, I noticed he would come to the bleachers even earlier, and he would watch me run and do exercises. I found it a bit weird, but didn't pay much attention, until one morning he saw I was running with a guy from senior year. He asked me later if he was my boyfriend, and he sounded very pissed. I said no, he was just a friend, which was true. But he didn't believe me, since he was very handsome with tons of literal fangirls around school, and I didn't really care to explain myself to him. He would also come to my after-school practice to watch, which was starting to be a bit annoying, him following me around but not being friendly around my friends. In sophomore year, I started training even more intensely, and didn't really have time to talk to him before or after class. But he did start messaging me and saying how cool I was and different, because I'm very masculine and have very short hair, and because of liking anime and video games. I didn't really like that because a lot of girls are like that, and it made me feel uncomfortable when he called me a goddess. I told him that, but he never really stopped, even though I rarely replied to his messages. In junior year, I met a girl I really liked. Eventually, I asked her out and we started dating. We were both openly gay at this point, and everyone knew we were dating except, I guess, Jay. One day I had a match and all my friends came to watch me. Jay was there as well, in the corner alone, watching. I won the match, which was a very big deal for my career, and my friends immediately jumped to congratulate me. While Jay was on his way towards me, my girlfriend came to me and we kissed. He stopped, wide-eyed, and left quickly. Later that night, he texted me and told me how she doesn't deserve me and all that I can change you shit. I was very mad at this point and started ignoring him completely. One Saturday evening, our whole class and lots of other people went to a birthday party. We all got a bit drunk, and I'm a very friendly drunk. So when Jay came up to me on the dance floor, I wasn't acting like I wanted to kill him. And he took that as a sign that we were friends again, I guess. After some dancing, I went to the sofa to sit with my friends, with my girlfriend in my lap. And that was when he disappeared. We all thought he went home early since he didn't like parties, but God, we were wrong. I had to use the restroom, which was outside, and my girlfriend was waiting for me in front. When I came out, I saw her about 20 meters away, with him all about her. She was trying to move away from him, but he wouldn't let her. I quickly started moving towards him, and that's when he grabbed her wrist and waist very tightly, and she screamed. That was when I lost it. I stomped to him and punched him right in the face, and trust me, I punch really hard. He fell to the ground with his hand on his nose, which was bleeding intensely. My girlfriend pulled me away and we went home soon after that. His face was blue for days after that, and he never came near me or my girlfriend again. He's still very much a neckbeard, even worse since he got very perverted. But no one talks to him in school since they all heard what happened that night. I'm really not an aggressive person, and I never punched someone before or after that outside of the ring. God, I really don't regret it. 4. I used to work for a company that took calls from people who needed utilities marked for digging. I met some truly interesting people there, one of whom was named Barry. Barry was a white guy in his early 20s and a little pudgy. He and I sort of bonded since we both liked the same things such as fantasy, sci-fi, computer and video games, and so on. Typical nerd fare. We got on well enough that we eventually started hanging out a few times outside of work. I discovered that he was dating one of my old friends from high school, Mary, whom I hadn't seen since then. It was a note in his favor because she was awesome. However, as time went by, I began to notice more and more off-putting things about him. He was really obsessed with fantasy and role-playing games, to the point where he was obnoxious. Barry liked to write, and his characters were always overpowered, to the point where it was completely ridiculous. During this time, Mary introduced him to Leon and some other mutual friends who held a D&D group 1 to 3 times a month. He was invited to play, but was eventually uninvited because he tried to pull this OP crap there as well. The group would find themselves in a jam, and his character would suddenly reveal himself to be an all-powerful, godlike dragon who could easily wipe the floor with whatever they were battling. He'd also tried to cheat on his rolls. Both of these were huge no-nos, and he was told that he needed to either clean up his act or find a new group. He would occasionally clean up his act, but would revert back so frequently that he was inevitably kicked from the group. It didn't help that he had this really arrogant know-it-all demeanor when he was talking to people in general. So, meanwhile, I'm still working with this guy who would go off on these tangents about the group, his characters, and his obsessions about very bloody and gory video games. He spent at least an hour once talking about the 80s video game Chiller, as he'd found an emulator for it. I was mildly interested since I didn't know a game like that existed, but I wasn't interested enough to really want to play it. There was just something about a game where you tortured helpless people that didn't sit right with me. I knew it was just a game and all, but this guy was really into it. It was making the people around us pretty uncomfortable as well. He eventually drifted off to do actual work stuff. We still talked at work, but I didn't really hang out with him outside of work anymore. One day we had a break at the same time and he was telling me about his swords. I was into stuff like that back in the day, so he offered to let me see them, as he had them in his car. I told him that it wasn't a great idea to keep those in the car while he was at work, but he hand-waved my concern away. Once out in the parking lot, I admired the swords, and he started talking about how he was planning on putting human souls into them. He then joked about stealing mine and putting it into the sword. I joked back that it wasn't available, but he basically said that he would steal it by force if he had to, which was kind of creepy, but I chalked it up to a joke. Barry wasn't really the most socially intelligent person. We went back inside and I repeated that work didn't want us to have weapons on site, as it was in the manual. Again, he hand-waved it away. I can't remember how much longer it was down the line, but eventually he got fired from work and escorted out by security. Why, you ask? Because he got into a verbal tiff with a female manager, and when her back was turned, told one of his co-workers that he wanted to cut her a new smile with his swords, which he had in his car. They searched his car and sure enough, there were the swords. Barry wasn't arrested, but this definitely kept him from finding gainful employment for a while. I think he was also in the National Guard, so they kicked him out as well. He broke up with his girlfriend, who wised up to the fact that she easily deserved better, since apparently he wasn't that great with her either. About a year later, I discovered that he had moved in with my friend Leon, who had long since wanted to move out from his family's place. His family was great, but he just wanted to be independent. He soon discovered that Barry was a terrible roommate, as he never picked up after himself, never really showered, and was perpetually late on his share of the rent and utilities. He also put on a little weight and would always walk around in dirty, greasy sweatpants. Oh, and there was all his porn that he'd leave out, which ranged from normal stuff to gay furry porn that he would always claim he had as a joke. Everyone said that there wouldn't be anything wrong with him being a gay furry, he just needed to be honest with himself and stop being such a creeper. Leon honestly put up with more of it than he should have. But what finally did it was how Barry treated Leon's female guests. He would always creepily hit on them and try to get fairly close, despite it being very clear that they wanted nothing to do with him, and that they weren't there for him. He eventually tried saying that he was the master of all I see. And I'm seeing you right now. to one of them, which was the final straw. Leon moved back in with his family, and Barry had to move back in with his. I think that there was a little bit more to how that ended, but for the life of me, can't remember it, since all of that last paragraph I was told secondhand by Leon. I know that there was more that he never mentioned, mostly because he wanted to block it out of his mind. 5. When I was about 19 or 20, I joined a dating site. Met someone on there, D. He messaged me first asking about my interests. We met up for coffee eventually. At first, he genuinely seemed like a down-to-earth, geeky guy, who seemed sweet at first. He did meet the physical criteria. Thinning hair, patchy beard, complained about his weight even though he made no effort to change it. Not into anime, but video games and tabletop RPGs. Played Second Life, and always bragged about the girl that played with him on there. I flirt with her all the time, haha. I will point out too that I was still in this naive age where I thought you were obligated to give a guy a chance just because he compliments you. I had also been single for a while. So as this thing progressed with the D, he immediately referred to me as his girlfriend. So I just took this as a sign that he was super into me. Introduced me to his friends and his interests right away. There was something weird about his compliments though, which I noticed with a lot of neckbeards. When I say weird, I mean obviously fetishized. I look a little more alternative, as much as this term annoys me. But he would say things like, "You're my little freaky girl." I feel like this made him assume that I was into a lot of freaky and kinky stuff, because after the first time we kissed, he immediately started asking me about all these sexual acts that he wanted to try, and if I did them. He flat out asked me really giddy if I did anal. This had to be our third date. So when it came down to getting intimate, he admitted that he was a virgin. I wasn't, but I thought to myself that maybe it could be fun. I could initiate some of the action. Oh boy, was I wrong. He would immediately complain about condoms, insisting that he couldn't orgasm with one on. Like, how the hell would you know that? You've never had sex. He made jokes all the time about, "Porn has ruined me, haha, and my friends have totally turned me off condoms." Like, that just makes me feel terrific, bud. I'm the only thing in the world that doesn't turn you on. He was just the definition of someone whose entire view of women and sex came from porn. I tried to be understanding and help him along the way, but I was getting frustrated. He was so desensitized to actual sex, it just wasn't funny. Other cringy things he said and did. Had such a narrowed and weird obsession with asses. Always had to excitedly exclaim, "I love butts!" if the subject came up. Never fucking let up about the anal thing, even though I said I didn't want to. I'm not against the act by any means, it just wasn't my thing personally. Plus, I especially don't want to do it if I'm being pressured. I'm a visibly tattooed woman. One day he made this stupid joke about how, "Haha, my buddy shared this post that said, 'Why do women not like anal but have piercings and tattoos?' Like, first of all, that's a stupid comparison. Second of all, that totally wasn't a jab at me because I have tattoos. Ugh. The look on my face must have said it all. I'm a sex-positive person, so I mentioned something about porn one day. He saw this as an opportunity to show me some video about this woman that got picked up by a male actor that forced her into a Nielsen position to have sex with her. This was after she screamed that she didn't want it. Like, wow! I know they're actors, but that's basically depicting violence. He thought it was funny. My name is Chloe. His nickname for me was Chloe Butt. Like, that's not even clever. Usually when you think of a nickname for someone, there's sort of an inside joke or pun that goes with it. That's just smashing two words together. It annoyed me so much, but he kept saying it. See what I mean about the unhealthy obsession with asses? The real kicker in all this, he dumped me. The reason was, "You spend way too much time with your family." Well, at the time I still lived at home, and I'm an only child. It just sort of works that way, sorry. I think he was just trying to get laid, honestly. We did have one brief sexual encounter. He ended it shortly after. That's the end of my long rant. Sorry about the length, but I hope you guys found it entertaining. Have a good day, and stay safe. From a once young and stupid girl with a butt. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 41. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I just want to draw your attention to something you will be seeing besides some of my videos for a little while at least. There'll be a donate button for various charities related to fighting with the current COVID-19 situation. You are, of course, not obligated to donate, but in case you're confused as to why that's suddenly showing up, I just wanted to explain why it was. It's an option we creators have been given. I've decided it doesn't hurt me to add it there, so I'd be remiss not to. And I do believe for every donation you make, YouTube is also contributing an equal or possibly greater amount. I'm not sure 100%, so don't quote me on that, but YouTube is also contributing. Okay, and I think I'm going to wrap things up there. What day is this? Is Sunday. I will possibly stream tonight if I have time. So if I do, I'll see you guys later. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.